Prime Minister Putin will run for the presidency in the 2012 Russian elections. The announcement was made at the ruling United Russia Party's annual convention. Now, for more on this, let's get the details here across live to our correspondent RT's Anissa Naouai, following the conference right here in Moscow. Anissa, good to see you. A dramatic announcement. Tell us more about what has been said today.
And a very dramatic turn here, Rory. When the two officials first came out together, I might add, to this convention, Vladimir Putin spoke first, and he was hinting that today wasn't going to be the day where we would discover who might run for president in 2012. He said, yes, between us, with the president, we have decided how this will all take place, but there's a time for this, and it seemed like today wasn't going to be the day. That very much not the case, when a little bit after that, he talked about President Medvedev leading the party. Let's first listen to how this all played out when this United Russia convention found out who will be running for president in 2012.
Given the proposal to head the electoral list of the party United Russia, and to do some party work, and on condition of good performance in the parliamentary elections, and my readiness for practical work in government, I believe it would be right for the Congress to support the candidacy of Vladimir Putin in the presidential election.
So obviously, President Medvedev, although not official, has accepted this proposal to lead Russia's ruling party, United Russia. And Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, when he went up to speak after that huge announcement, I think it's fair to say, talked about how a tradition, I should say, has really been formed here in Russia in its modern politics, that the incumbent president then becomes the head of the party.
A tradition has been formed in recent years in our country. It says that the incumbent president heads the electoral list of the party United Russia. I believe we should not break this tradition, and I propose that President Dmitry Medvedev should head the list of the party in the upcoming elections.
It should be said that a lot of experts were divided on whether or not today would be the day, partly because this convention is, of course, meant to lead up and begin the real kickoff of the election season. The parliamentary elections will be held on December 4th, and that really essentially is the focus. Prime Minister Vladimir Putin now, still as the leader of United Russia, speaking, lining up what he believes these deputies and delegates should focus on as we come into these elections. But I think it's fair to say that the delegates, Russians and the world alike, is going to be pretty much focused today on this big news that Prime Minister Vladimir Putin will in fact run for president in 2012.
Indeed, Anissa, news that many people have been waiting all around the world to hear for quite some time here. Now we're having it here on RT, exclusively on RT. Anissa Naouai, thank you very much. All right, now let's cross over to Adrian Pabst, who is a professor of the politics, at the University of Kent, joining us live by the phone. Now, thank you for joining us today. So the big announcement today, any surprise for you here?
Well, I don't think the surprise is that Vladimir Putin will run in the presidential election. I think that was expected for some time. What is surprising is that President Medvedev has agreed to head the list of United Russia in the forthcoming parliamentary election. That's really the big surprise here. I think since July, there was a sense that Medvedev had given up fighting for the presidency, and that he was in some sense resigned to the fact that his mentor was going to return to that job in 2012.
Now, certainly a broad range of issues are being covered by both Medvedev and Putin here. Putin saying that over the past few years and for the next few years, growth has been seen and growth will continue in Russia, whether it's GDP growth. He also said that the rich must pay higher taxes. It shouldn't be levied on the working class. Also talking about new laws affecting businesses to be discussed with entrepreneurs. In fact, also saying that a third of new businesses will receive government assistance in the coming years to grow and mature. An optimistic outlook, do you think, for the future of Russia, whether it comes to the economy, also the social sector?
Well, I think it's clearly a shift in strategy compared with what President Medvedev has tried to implement in the last 4 years. President Medvedev has tried to strengthen the private sector, but also tried to strengthen intermediary institutions of civil society, talking about, for instance, social organizations providing welfare. I think the future President Putin, if he is, and when he is elected, in some sense will pursue a more statist strategy, will want the state to be really at the center of economic and social development. I think that's going to be the big difference with the last 4 years.
Now let's address one issue here. Certainly Washington will be keeping a close eye and ear to the ground on today's developments. Let's talk about the future of foreign policy here. We know that, for example, the ongoing European missile defense shield has been a bone of contention between Washington here and Moscow. The Bush-era administration saying they want to put missiles in Western Europe to deflect the threat of rogue states like North Korea and Iran. Do you think we could see perhaps a change or a shift in Russia's foreign policy strategies?
I don't expect any major shift. I think there might be a slight change of tone. I think President Putin in the past used some rather sort of strong language at times. Remember the Security Conference in 2007 when he denounced American sort of unilateral hegemony. I think over time, his tone probably has changed and he will be more pragmatic perhaps than at that point. But I don't think on the issue there will be any big shift, because President Medvedev has also been opposed to any missile shield that would threaten or look to threaten Russian national security interests. I think on that there's probably much more agreement between the two than perhaps on some of the economic and social issues we've just discussed.
Well, we're certainly seeing a lot of enthusiasm among the members of the ruling United Russia Party with this announcement that Medvedev backs Putin as candidate for next year's presidential election. What do you think the feeling will be on the general streets of Russia to this announcement?
I think it will be mixed. I think there will clearly be people who welcome this, because I think Putin's popularity is genuine among many Russians. I don't think that can be denied. On the other hand, I think there will be a part of the population that will be disappointed, because I think they saw in President Medvedev someone who was closer to their own concerns and also perhaps a figure of the future rather than a figure of the past. And in that sense, I think it will be mixed. I think the younger generation, I think certain professionals, I think a number of Russians perhaps who have a lot of contact with the outside world, who travel a lot, who work in international jobs, will probably think that this may signal a return to a more statist policy of the past. But of course we don't know what sort of policy a future President Putin might conduct. Perhaps the world will have changed so much that the old recipes of the years 2000, 2008 will no longer work. So we have to allow for the fact that there might be some development in that as well. But I think the reactions on the whole will be mixed, though maybe a majority of Russians will welcome this.
All right, Adrian Paps, the Professor of Politics at the University of Kent, joining us live on the phone. Thank you very much for your time indeed. All right, well, you're with RT live from central Moscow. I'm Rory Souchet, covering this breaking news here on RT, that President Dmitry Medvedev has decided to push for Prime Minister Putin to run for the presidency for 2012. Both of them taking the helm there, addressing the ruling United Russia Party, and a broad range of subjects being discussed there. We'll start first with the current President Medvedev saying that modernizing and fighting corruption top the list of the government's agendas and priorities. Medvedev also saying that United Russia is in urgent need of modernization. It needs to get rid of, quote, hangers-on. And Prime Minister Putin saying that the annual GDP growth must be increased by 6 to 7%, although he did say it's on a very good uphill move right now. Saying also that Putin, 5 to 10 years is the deadline for rearming armed forces for the Russian Federation. Now, one point, though, I must say is that regarding Prime Minister Putin, who's been really in charge of the economics here for Russia for quite some time now, when it comes to roads, the construction of roads will be doubled in the near future. Pensions have already raised by about 45%. Salaries reflect 120% growth for 2012. Also saying that when it comes to the issue of healthcare, those who work in the healthcare industry will notice a 30% raise in in salaries in the next 12 months. Also, professors in universities will will notice an increase in their salaries as well. Let's get some more insight and analysis now. I'm going to talk to Crosstalk host Peter Lavelle, joining me here in the studio at RT, and discuss what is the ultimately breaking news here on RT, with the development that President Medvedev is supporting Prime Minister Putin to run for the presidency of 2012. Peter, good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Any surprise?
The great wait is over. The great wait. No, not at all. And, you know, and I could just reflect upon a lot of what's been talked about in Western media, is that we all knew that it was either going to be Putin or Medvedev. And you know what? If you look in the scheme of things, what people call the tandem, in a good way or in a disparaging way, it is a continuity of a same group of ideas. Now, one of the things, I think that they had a number of contingency plans, okay? And they came out on this one in the end. And I think the reason is because we live in a very turbulent world right now.
We do.
We have the Western financial and banking system in chaos. We have stock markets falling all over the world. And Russia is caught in the middle of it. Russia's not part of the problem. It's actually part of the solution.
But Putin was saying earlier that Russia has, for the most part, managed to avoid the majority of the global economic crisis.
Russia has managed its economy extremely well, considering the circumstances. I mean, when the G20 is supposed to bail out the G8, I mean, this is kind of an interesting phenomenon right now. I think it's also continuity. Russians do very much like him. He is genuinely popular in this country, but so is Mr. Medvedev. I would imagine that Mr. Medvedev will become prime minister, and he will continue to push his modernization message, as you were saying earlier.
Ultimately saying that working in tandem, Putin and Medvedev, has been a success in recent years and will continue to be.
I think it's the only way it will work right now. There are no other candidates out there. Let's be honest right now. Russia's democracy is still developing. United Russia has a lot of development to go. I mean, just look at those faces there and the messages. It has to be more nuanced. Mr. Putin has said that they have to respond to people more, and they really need to. They need to build parties more here. But in the interim, they have two strong leaders, confidence in these leaders, and continue the course, because the course is genuinely pretty good, with a lot of nuances that we've heard both gentlemen just say. It's nothing perfect, but the course has to continue. This is a modernization process, and Mr. Medvedev has stressed it the most.
Well, as we were saying, Peter, the general reaction among the members of the ruling United Russia Party, very supportive in the announcement being made today.
Well, yeah,
here in
they owe
Moscow.
their jobs to these men, okay? Let's be honest about it. I mean, I am not a big fan of United Russia. They need to do a lot more to get in touch with people. The way they get in touch with people is through these two politicians, these two leaders. Now, they have to do a lot more to have recognition on their own as a group of people that can actually do something, and they're not as popular as they go into this parliamentary election.
So, okay, you say the party has to do a lot more here, but what about the future? How does the future look, do you think?
I think what Russia needs is a lot of continuity. On my way over here when I heard the news, you know, my father died at 75 years old, and the Great Depression happened 40 years before that. But that was the determining moment in his life, remembering the Depression. The people in Russia today remember the 1990s, and that's not too long ago. And so what people want is continuity, and they want to have trust in their leadership. Now, we know there's a plethora of problems that have to be dealt with in this country. Corruption is number one. They are making some inroads, but they need a whole lot more if this country is to become the way that they both say they want it to be.